that I am good to go here. Does the sound okay? I can't tell whether the sound is good, and I can't see chat for some reason. Huh. That's interesting. Thank you, baby. Hey. Sorry, my daughter brought me a cup of coffee. Alright. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. If I can figure out how to get the chat to work for me. Okay. Oh my goodness. Alright, let me get this out of the way. I'm going to first sort of go through everything that I've got set up and ready, the type of fabrics that I like to use, and some other things. What I'm using for, actually let me show you the first one that the one that I used for the challenge. This is the one that everybody saw in the video that I did. And I messed up on this one and I never said it. I don't actually use this one for a pincushion much because I didn't have any fiberfill and I used cotton balls and that doesn't work. So the pins, they do not want to stick in it. You have to really force it down in there to get it to work. So I did record a tutorial for this, which I decided not to share, and this is the one that I made during the tutorial after I got the fiberfill and the wire and things that I needed. I stopped recording before doing any of the embellishments because I wasn't happy with it. I just didn't like it. The fabric that I used I thought was going to look great, and I wasn't happy with it. And then after I embellished it and added the little wrench and things, sort of a steampunk look, there's a little screw down in there and a cameo and some buttons and things. And after I got it embellished, I was like, hey, I kind of like that. So, but I didn't post the video and decided to do the USTREAM instead. So, some of the things you'll need. I like to use, this is a ribbon spool from one that I emptied, and I like to save these to use for projects. This was actually an Easter ribbon, and I just popped the ends off of it. So that's actually going to be used for the body of the hat. And as you can see, they vary in sizes, so you're going to need to do a pattern each time you do one. You can see the height difference in these two, and this one's a bit wider than this one. So, I mean, these are all random sizes. To do the top of the hat, which is this part here with the hole in the middle for your fiberfill, for your actual pincushion, I used foam board. Couldn't think of what it was called. Foam board for it. And to do it, I figured this would be a good size because it's just the right width out from the edge. I just traced that on my foam board. And then to do the inside, I centered this as best I can. Just kind of eyeballed it. You can measure it if you want. And then I traced around the inside so that I could make it fit, so that when I put it on, it's going to sit on top and it's not going to be slipping all over the place. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that real quick because you'll need that part to make your pattern. So I'm just going to run a bead of hot glue right around the edge. Ugh, strings. I hate glue strings. And then just set that on there. Give it a good press. Hey, Kamika! You made it! Okay. So then this is what's going to be used to do your pattern. Something else I like to do is go around the edge. I use an old nail file. I have sandpaper, but the nail file works just as well. Just to sort of smooth it out. I like it's easier to hold the nail file, and I don't have a sanding block that's decent, so. You can use chipboard for this part. Just would be better to use a thick chipboard, and for the body you can actually use a toilet paper roll. I prefer these because they're more sturdy, and when you're making your pattern you don't want something, because you're going to lay it on its side, and you don't want something that's going to mush because you're going to be rolling it to make your pattern. And there we go. And it doesn't have to be perfect. If you want it to be perfect, great. I got a little crazy, and this one was really, really smooth and straight around the edges. I mean, it was practically a perfect circle. But this one I'm going to be doing something a little bit different with. I decided at the last minute that after I get the fabric on there, I'm going to use this Michael's frame and put on the top, and then the pincushion is going to stick up out of that. So now that I have this ready, I'm going to show you how to make the pattern first on paper, and then I will show you on the fabric. It's just easier to see on the paper than the fabric, so. And this is just a regular piece of printer paper. What I like to do, if I can find my pen, I'm going to use a red pen so you can see it really well. Is I like to make a mark right here, just as a reference point, and then I kind of eyeball it. I'll put one at the inside at the top so I can see what I'm doing, and then also I'm going to put one. I can't see. I can't see. Right there on the inside that lines up, pretty much lines up with the one that I made right here on the top. And what you want to do is you're going to lay it down on your paper or on your fabric, whatever you're doing, because I'm going to have to do this again on my fabric. And you're going to make a mark at the top and again at the bottom where the other mark is, because those are going to be your reference points to line it up every time. And you're going to be rolling it from one side to the other until you reach that point again. So you're going to roll it in a complete circle. And as you're rolling it with your pen right on the edge of the paper, I hope you can see that. And this piece of paper is not big enough. I didn't start close enough to the edge. But I'll show you the one that I did for the other hat. This is the finished pattern that I did for this hat. And then I extended it down about a ½ an inch on the bottom, because that's going to actually fold up inside. And then about a ¼ inch on top, and that's going to fold over the edge here and be glued, so that you have a nice smooth edge. So my fabric that I chose to use for this one is denim and lace. So I'm going to be using the leg from an old pair of pants, and I believe this one's going to be long enough. I hope so. It should be. So Let me just take my scissors and cut up the side of that. I could actually center it so that the seam on the pants is actually on maybe the front of the hat. How do you think that'll look, Kamika? I did this is my personal pincushion that I used the other leg from this pair of jeans to do the top of it and the sides, but I left the seam intact on the top. So I'm not sure how that's going to look. Okay, we'll try it that way. So what I'll do on this one is just try to sort of eyeball it and make a mark directly across from it. I'll just do it that way. And none of the marks that I'm making are going to be seen. There we go. Now you can see it. This way I can start in the center here. I'm actually going to do it on the back of the jeans. And see if this pin will show. Yeah, it'll show up. I don't know if you can see it. I can see it there. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is start on this end of the pants, since it sort of already rolls in that direction, and center my two marks. The one on the inside here and the one on the top. And then I'm going to end up rolling it in either direction to make my marks. Okay. So then what you're going to do is just roll it and make sure that it doesn't wiggle and that you keep contact on the top and on the bottom. It's going to sort of lean at an angle. And then you're just going to keep going until you get to that point. And I like to go about a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch over on at least one side, so that you'll have a little bit of overlap on one side, so that it meets in the back. And then we're going to line it up again and do the bottom side. And as you're rolling it and doing the bottom side, you kind of want to keep an eye on the top to make sure that it's staying right on that line. And you want to mark where your line hits on here as well, because in that spot you're going to draw a straight line, because that's going to be where your fabric meets up. Alright, I got that side done, so let's do the other side. Let's see if I can turn this to the side so you can see what I'm doing better. Move some of this stuff out of the way. I tried to get everything out and make sure I had everything ready, and I've got it all over my desk, and I'm dropping it in the floor. You just want to line your marks up on the top and on the bottom. And then as you're rolling it, making sure that it keeps contact on the top and the bottom, just keep your pen right up against the edge of that and mark it as it goes. And there's your mark on that side. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Again, trying to make sure that I'm staying on my line on this side. Okay. And it doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to be gluing it on. You're going to have a little bit of overlap. And then I just go in. This is the top of the hat, so we're going to go 1/4 of an inch approximately. And I just draw another line 1/4 of an inch from that one. Just sort of eyeball it. I don't measure it because it doesn't really matter. That part's not going to be seen. And make sure you extend over to the part that's going to be the overlap. And then again on the bottom I like to go about 1/2 inch, and since this is so close to the edge, I'm not even going to bother to shape it around. Okay. You're also going to need to determine what size you want your brim to be, and you're going to want it to be a bit smaller or a bit larger than what the top of the hat. So I'm going to use my roll of duct tape to trace around to decide on the size of the brim of the hat. So before I even start cutting my material, you're also going to need another piece, just a little bit smaller than this, that's going to go on the underside. Just to give it sort of a finished look. And that's what I did here on this one. You can see where I just glued it around. It doesn't have to be, you can finish it with some ribbon or lace or something on the bottom, but since it's going to be sitting on it, I didn't really think it mattered. If you want to finish the bottom, that's perfectly alright. And I'm going to do another one for the bottom. And when I cut it out, I can cut it just inside the circle. Alright, now we can start cutting everything out. I'm going to keep my duct tape handy because that's what I'm going to use with my wire. I also need to mention that this wire I hope is going to be strong enough to support the brim of the hat. I had a thicker gauge wire that I ran out of, and that's one of the reasons it took me so long to do a tutorial, is because I had to find some more wire. And unfortunately the only thing I could find was this stuff, which I don't even know what gauge it is because it's not on here. It was in the dollar thing in the craft area at Walmart. So hopefully it'll be strong enough, but we're going to use that to join the ends of the wire together. Okay, so now we're going to start cutting it out. And you don't have to be too precise with this. And you can, if you want, you can glue it and then cut the material. I just don't like to have all the extra bulky material when I'm trying to glue my piece together. Because you could imagine sitting there trying to, you've got your fabric on here and you're adding hot glue and you're rolling this and this whole big bulk is coming up with it. It's kind of hard to keep everything lined up. That's why I like to do a pattern. probably could have used my circle dies for this, but I did not want to drag my big shot in here. I don't even know if I have a circle that big. And that's going to be the bottom piece, and I'll go ahead and mark that so I can keep them straight. And you want to make sure if you're using a thinner fabric that you're using a chalk pencil that you can get in the sewing department or something like that, and or a lighter colored ink so that it doesn't show through your fabric. I like thicker fabrics. This is a some stretchy denim. I like a stretchier fabric. You can use cotton knits, which are really good. That's actually what I'm going to be using for the actual pincushion part. And if you wanted to leave that part out, that's fine. Also, something else, if you're not doing the same thing I am, if you're doing one like this rather than one, I'm using a frame on the top, but if you're doing one like this, you're also going to need another circle here on top. So you'll want to cut that at the exact same size as the top of your piece. You know what, I think I'm going to go ahead and do that just to show you how it's done, and then I can add the frame to the top of mine. I think I have a piece big enough here. Yeah. Okay. Just give that a quick cut out. Normally I wouldn't be using these scissors for this because I cut paper with these. I have this strict rule about not cutting paper and things with the scissors that you're cutting fabric with, because paper will dull your scissors. And you want scissors that you're using on fabric to be sharp all the time. And that's going to be the piece for the top, and it's going to fit perfectly on that top. And the edges will cover up where you've glued your side piece over the top. Okay, now we can start gluing everything together. Let me just move this out of the way. Oh, that's nice. I glued my glue gun to a piece of paper. Oh, it's got nothing there to start with. Alright, so what I like to do is I'm going to start from one side and roll all the way to the other side. So I'm going to start by putting just a bit of glue in the direction that I'm going to be rolling. So I'm going to put it from the mark this way. And I like to do a small section at a time. And make sure you line up the top and the bottom marks. Line up the bottom first and then lay the top in place. And then start rolling. You're going to hold that for just a second to give that glue a little bit of time to set. Sorry, my phone's ringing. I'm not going to answer it right now. And then you're just going to sort of roll it back. Add a bit more glue. And then we're just going to continue rolling, making sure that it stays lined up with that line. Now if you're using a really stretchy fabric, feel free to sew it on your sewing machine. But when you do it with that type of fabric, I would suggest measuring your fabric to the width of the bottom part of your form so that you can just stretch the material over it and it's going to stretch out on the top and fit nicely on the bottom. All the way around, and I didn't put glue past where the materials meet because I'm going to want to fold this under to give it a nice edge. So what I'm going to do here, make sure you can see, is just run a really thin piece, a bit of glue right down through there. I'm just going to tuck it under all the way down, so that that's going to give it a nice finished edge right down the back of the hat, like that. Now I won't join this part until after I folded the bottom part in and connected it, because I'm going to be stretching it, which is why I like to use a fabric with a little bit of give, so that it's nice and tight and you'll be able to see that nice V shape in the hat. So I'm going to start with the underneath part first. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the inside, stretch, and place down on the inside, just like so. You can hold that in place for just a second so that it gets a nice seal. Something else you can do is cut slits in your fabric almost all the way up to the top so that you can glue it in sections, and that's going to make it just a bit easier to add your glue and fold under. Add a bit of glue to the center of that. Give it a little stretch and press. And just continue doing that all the way around. Get another glue stick in here. And naturally it's going to fall out on me. This has probably been the best glue gun I've had. I went and bought one of the Sure Bonders with the fine tip and was very unhappy with it. I hadn't had it a week, had maybe used it 3 times. I would plug it in and it would work fine just as soon as it heated up, but then after it sat there while I was working on my project, if it sat there more than a few minutes, then the glue wouldn't come out anymore, and I'd have to turn it off and let it cool down and then let it heat back up, or I'd have to sit and push and force the glue gun down in there for the glue to actually melt. It was like it was melting in the chamber and just running out, which did not make me a happy camper. Now at this point I'm going to run glue right down the side and sort of across the end of it. And then just fold that under. And that's the back of the hat. And the front with our nice little seam running down through there. Like that. It's going to turn out looking nice. Okay, what I'm going to do here on the top is again go down through here and cut some slits. Fairly close together. And this is just so that it's taking care of all that extra bulk right around the edges so that you don't have lumps when you fold it down. If you ever sew, then you'll be familiar with why you should do this. Okay, so I'm going to start here on the edge and fairly close to the edge. Run a bit of glue and start pressing down my little tabs. I like to only do 1 or 2 tabs at a time so that it ensures that there's no bulky pieces. Thank you, Kamika. We are doing, this is my top hat, my mini top hat pincushion that I make, and this is basically my tutorial. I recorded a tutorial for YouTube and ended up not posting it because I wasn't happy with it and decided that I would do a USTREAM class. This is actually my first USTREAM broadcast. How's everybody doing? Oh, not a problem. I was worried that it being my first one that I wouldn't get anybody here to watch. I've seen some that people have done with cardstock and things like that. I just prefer fabric. I like the look of fabric. To me, it looks more authentic. The first one I ever made, I actually made probably about a year ago, and it's actually a wearable one. It's not a pincushion. I just left the top flat, and it's a bit bigger than this. And then I did one for Halloween that was absolutely huge. I used poster board, and it was probably about 2 feet tall. I did a Mad Hatter hat for my daughter for Halloween, which turned out pretty good. Okay, so now that we have the body of the hat done, for the most part, at least this part of it, I'm going to move on and do the brim of the hat. And we won't be able to attach the brim of the hat until we've finished the piece that's going to go inside as the pincushion. So I'm going to set that piece aside and pull out the piece for my bottom. Now this is going to be, I marked that as bottom, but I believe it's the top. Well, they're both the same size, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to take my wire and just shape it with my fingers until I get it to about the size I want. And that looks good there. If I can find my wire cutters are in really bad shape. And I'm just going to cut that even. I'm not fond of this wire because it doesn't spring back at all. It has no I don't know. It's not my favorite. So now I'm going to cut a piece of duct tape just to hold the ends of that together. And I'm just going to sort of wrap that around. And then again, just sort of shape it with my fingers till I get the desired shape. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to start on one side, and I usually like to start on the side where my piece of duct tape is. And right up against the edge, I'm going to run just a little bit of glue, and then I'm going to take my fabric, sort of roll it over that, and hold it down until it adheres over the wire. And again, I'm going to make some little slits, usually right as I go, so that as I'm rolling this, and I'm going to go from one side to the other like you're changing a tire. You don't take the lug nuts off in a circle, you go crisscross. And if you're using a wire this flimsy, I would suggest not pulling it too tight over the wire, otherwise it's going to misshape it to the point that you're not going to have a circle when you're done. Okay, and then I'm going to go to this side, run a little bit of glue, and fold it over. Kamika is, KLJ Touch is a touch of creativity on YouTube, and we were on a design team together for a while and got to know each other, and we hang out on Skype occasionally. And we're just going to keep going around, crisscrossing from the one that we just did so that we can maintain the shape, the round shape of that wire. If you're using a stiffer wire, it wouldn't be a problem. I used for this one, I couldn't find my wire, and after I got this done, it was actually clipped to my curtain right in front of my desk. But I actually cut a wire coat hanger and shaped it to do the bottom of this one. So I mean, if you don't have a wire and you want to take the time and the blisters on your fingers to shape a wire coat hanger, then by all means it works. I'm going to go in those in-between spots and really pull it over and give it a press to try to keep that circular shape around the edge. Actually, I think that probably would work. Then all you would have to do is like this spring here, you would just have to cut it evenly and then just press it together, put some duct tape on it, and you've got it made. So see this part here, and you've got a nice little circle, and this is actually going to be glued right onto the bottom just like that. And you can see the hat is already taking shape. I'm liking the way that denim looks. I'm actually going to be putting some lace over the denim too, so I kind of wanted to give it a bit of a shabby chic look. So now what I want to do is just sort of trim this other circle down before I glue it on. I cut it too big. Okay, and this piece is going to go right on the bottom just to cover up all of those edges. And if it's still a little too big, after you glue it, you can go in with your scissors and sort of trim it off a little bit. I'm actually going to go ahead and just shave off a little bit around the edge. I listed the class as an hour, guys, because I wasn't sure how long it was going to take. Normally when I do one of these, I don't sit down and do it all in one sitting. I might work on it while I'm watching a TV show or whatever. I actually don't watch the TV. I watch it on the computer, but yeah, that's much better. That's going to fit nicely on the inside there. And so now you just start laying down a bead of glue just inside the edge. Yeah, I seriously need to use my stash up. I've reached a point, and I'm so unorganized in my craft area that I have things spilling out of drawers, I have things in boxes in the floor, I have things shoved under my desk in boxes. There's actually barely room for my feet under there at this point. So that's got the bottom piece on there, and there's a little glue there, but that's okay, because like I said, it's not going to be seen. It's going to be sitting on it, like so. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is get our piece ready to go on the inside. If you're not doing what I'm doing and using a circle, a round frame on top. Oh yeah, I have so much trouble keeping it. My Big Shot is actually on my kitchen table at the moment because I've got so much stuff on my desk that it won't fit. I actually took a bunch of stuff off my desk and put it in a box and put it next to my desk so that there would be area for you to see what I was doing. So for this part, what I normally do is go ahead and glue it on, just like this. Don't worry that it's going to cover up that it's going to cover up the hole, because we can go in with the scissors afterwards and cut that out. Doing it this way just helps you line it up so that you don't have to worry about lining everything up before or after you've got it cut. So I'm just going to go right along the edge, and I'm going to start on one side and then line it up so that I'm not hanging over the edge anywhere, and then give it a good press. Hi, Carissa. Okay, now that we have that there, to get ready for our pincushion part, I'm sure at this point, if you wanted to, it would take a lot of fiberfill. If you wanted to, you could just stuff your fiberfill right up in the bottom here. And this being a stretchy denim, it's going to poke it up. And would probably work that way, but I just prefer to have it look sort of like this. I'm just going to take my scissors and cut a little slit, and you want to use your finger to sort of gauge how far in you want to make your cut. And cut across that way, and then back across to the other side. And I just sort of go in a cross pattern cutting triangle shape. Into the fabric. And I don't usually go all the way to the edge, because I'm going to sort of stretch it down inside and glue it. So now that I have the pieces cut, they're going to fold down inside like that. And then when you do your pincushion part, it's just going to slip right down in there, and then you can glue it around the edges. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on it, stretch that down and press just like we did to do this bottom part. Yeah, I've noticed that too many times people will show you how to do something, or they'll tell you how to do something, and they don't really show you how to make a pattern to do it, or anything like that. And for me, I taught myself to sew using patterns and things like that when I was in high school, and I got used to having patterns to use when I'm making something. And so I like to always start with a pattern. And there are glue strings everywhere. I've got it recording, so I'm going to be posting it to my YouTube channel. And yes, I am recording it. And I'm also going to share it on Messy Desk for those of you who are here from there. Okay, and then that's got the top part open so that your pincushion will fit right down inside there. For the pincushion part, I have some stretch knit material. This is actually from a t-shirt. And I'm just going to cut off a square of that. It is. It's actually the leg of a pair of my daughter's jeans, and the other leg is this pincushion here that I made. This is a tuna can, and then this is just the other leg of the jeans. Yeah, I have to recycle everything. On my YouTube channel, there's a fabric flower video, and most of the flowers in that video are from old clothes. I have some pink ones that were from a pair of pink satin pajama pants that my daughter chopped the legs off of. So now, I want this to be blue, and I have faded jeans distressing, so I'm going to try that. And I'm sorry if my arms are all up in the way, but my camera is attached to the shelf where my inks are. I'm probably going to need some of the black as well. Sorry, I had to get a drink of my coffee there. Let me find my water. Somewhere. It's empty. Let me go fill this up with some water real quick, and I will be right back. Okay, sorry about that. So what I'm going to do is just jump right in and get messy with it. I'll get a liberal amount of that on there. Spray it with some water. Guys, I love these. I found these at a thrift store, and they were spritz hand sanitizers that you could actually screw the top off. I'd had the spritz ones before, but you couldn't take the top off. Well, these are refillable. I found them at a thrift store for 50 cents. I grabbed 2 of them, and I used one of them for water only, and the other one I can mix paint and make my own sprays and stuff with. So now I'm just gonna lay this in there and give it a good gush around. I live in Florida. You can probably tell from my accent I'm not from Florida. I'm from Alabama, and I was kind of nervous and excited. So when I get nervous and excited, my accent gets a little bit thicker. I've managed to, and I didn't realize this till I went home one time to visit family, but I've managed to pretty much sort of tone down my accent quite a bit. And I went home at one point to visit family and realized just how much I had managed to tone it down. It was ridiculous. It was like, did I ever speak that way? Now I'm just getting this nice and colored. And that's not going to be dark enough. But that's okay. I'm going to add some black to it to sort of darken it up a little bit. And now I have the It does. This is a 100% stretch cotton. And cotton always takes color really well. I'm going to add some black to it. Just to make it a bit darker because it's too blue. I really need to get a pair of gloves when I'm doing this. Yeah, that's a bit closer. And I'm going to try not to touch my white lace over there with my hands like this. And my towel is missing. I'll just use a piece of the shirt. Oh yeah, I love getting messy. If I don't get messy when I'm playing with stuff and crafting, then something is wrong. I'm just going to dry this off a bit. I'm not too worried about the edges around the material here because that's not going to be seen. The only part that's going to be seen really is the center part. I want to get this good and dry before I put it on, or before I make the pincushion part, because I'm going to be putting white lace over the top, and I don't want this color to absorb a bit into the white lace through the moisture in the fabric. Oh wow, that's a lot of jeans. There, I think that's about dry enough. It's more, you can see it's more dry there in the center. I'm going to hit it just a little bit longer. What'd you do with all those jeans? Is that the tablecloth you were talking about? Yeah, I'll have to go check that out. Because my girls like to cut up their clothes. My oldest is 15 and she's into graphic design and fashion, and she's always trying to alter something. Honey, get ad blocker. It'll be your best friend. Okay, so now that I've got that colored and fairly dried, I'm going to dig in here and get a rubber band. Check out my hands. Isn't that awesome? Okay, and pull out my fiber fill. I'm using a polyester, 100% polyester fiber fill. And what I'm going to do is just sort of cup it in my hand and pack in the fiber fill. And you're going to want a piece that's, or something that's large enough that when you gather it on the bottom, it's going to be firm, and it's also going to fit inside the hole here. And I just keep packing it in there with my fingers. The reason I like to use a stretch knit material for this is so that when I ball it up like this and I squeeze the fiber fill up in there, this isn't going to have all those wrinkles around the edges. Once I get it down in there, it's going to be nice and smooth. So that's why I would recommend a stretch knit material for your actual pincushion part. And I think that is going to be big enough. Yeah, that's going to fit nicely. You want it to not slip in easily. You want to have to force it. That's why, like I said, I use a stretch knit material. This t-shirt is really, really stretchy. And so using a stretch knit, it stretches around the fiber fill so that you can see on the bottom I do have wrinkles, but because the top is stretched out so much, it stretches the wrinkles flat, basically. If you're using, say, like a denim that isn't quite as stretchy, you can see here on the back, I've got a couple of pretty big wrinkles there because it didn't stretch out that much. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is put this away first so it's not sitting in my lap. I've got the big bag of fiberfill in my lap. Okay, is I'm going to take a piece of lace, and this is the same Dior lace that I used on the top of this one. And I'm just going to cut a piece that's going to fit right over the top of this. I'm just going to eyeball how big a piece I need. And then set that aside. And then I'm just going to lay that on the top. And see, this is going to have wrinkles in it, but because it's lace, it's not going to be really that noticeable. So now I'm going to take my rubber band, stretch it across the top and get it as close as you can, and then just keep wrapping that around. Just like that, and that is your actual cushion part that's going to sit right in the top, just like so. And you can push it down a little bit further so that it doesn't stick up quite as much, or you can have it mounted up pretty high, but that's how that's going to fit in there. And you don't even have to cut all this off. You can just leave it packed right inside. The way I like to glue this in, I'm not going to glue mine in yet because I'm actually going to be putting a Michaels frame on the top of mine. That's going to be right there, which I've already primed that with some white gesso because I'm going to add some blue to it. And this is going to sit right there. So you can see that's going to have a really pretty sort of finish to the top. I'm also going to be adding some lace to the side. I'm going to pull that out and do that now before I put the frame on, so that this lace, I can't remember what I cut it off of. I want to say it was a pair of thigh highs because it's really, really stretchy. So this is going to go around the side like so. Let me get that closer so you can see. And so this is going to fold up and over the top. I used to wear them all the time, and I don't even dress up anymore. I with 3 kids and just crazy stuff. I don't wear them anymore, so don't go anywhere to wear them. So I'm going to start on the front side here. I guess it didn't matter if I left that seam or not because you're not going to see it. And sort of center that right here in the middle. Just add a bit of glue. And stick that down. I never liked pantyhose. I always wore thigh highs because pantyhose made my tummy hurt. Oh, I love burlesque. I went to Lakeland, my boyfriend and I went recently, and just sort of walked around downtown. And they have a burlesque theater there, and I would so love to go check it out. Ow, I just stuck my finger in the glue. Yeah, pantyhose just never suited me, so even back when I was in high school, if I had an event or something, I was in thigh highs. I did not wear pantyhose. Could not stand them. Not to mention the hassle when you have to go to the bathroom. Don't even get me started on that. What did I do with my scissors? Y'all distracted me. I'm just going to trim that off. Yeah, about the only time I dress up for an event or something is for the Renaissance fairs, which I absolutely love. We have one going on down here now that I'm going to have to miss this year, and I hate it. I actually want to get a decent pattern so that I can make myself a corset, because the store-bought corsets just do not fit me. I haven't. My costume last year for the Renaissance Fair, I was an elf. I actually have a video, sort of a picture slideshow of my ears. We went to a Renfest, and my better half bought me this awesome pair of custom fit elf ears, or fairy ears. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about this bulk here, because that's going to be covered up when I add the frame. Okay, we're almost done, ladies. Yeah, I'm okay with the historical effect of it, but I am a huge fantasy buff. I love anything fantasy. Dragons, fairies, vampires, werewolves, wear anything really. Oh, and there, I'm out of glue again. As far as the historical part, the clothes are one of my favorite things. I absolutely love the way the clothes looked back then. The front. I told my mother one time I was born in the wrong century. Okay, so that's what we've got so far with that on the top. And I think I'm going to come in, since there's a bit of a gap here, and add some trim right around the edge here. See if I can put some more glue up in there. Pearls, yeah, that's a good. I have some a white pearl strand that may. I don't know if I have any flat back pearl. Oh, I do have white flat backs, so that should work nicely. Yeah, I have a basket of embellishments that I'm going to pull out in just a second once I get the main body of the hat put together, and then you guys can kind of chip in and help me out with embellishments, because that was the issue when I was making this one for the tutorial that I ended up not posting. Was once I stopped before I got the embellishments on there because I wasn't liking how it was looking, and then once I got the embellishments on, I was like, hey, I kind of like that. Okay, so now that the frame is on there, I'm gonna actually take some of the faded jeans, and if I can find one of my paint brushes. And I'm going to do basically a dry brush right across the top, just to add a hint of color. And if it's too dark, I can always come back and go over it with just a bit more gesso that's watered down. What do you think? Let's see if I can cut the glare from somewhere. Yeah, don't be afraid to use your paintbrush on your ink pads. I do it all the time. Yeah, this one I think I got as a gift from someone. I can't remember if this is one that I bought or if it was a gift because I don't have the package. And normally when someone sends me something, I write their name on the outside of the package so that I'll remember, because I gotta tell you, my memory is awful. I have so much trouble remembering things. I was worried all day long that I would forget something. Okay, and I'm going to come back with just a little bit of black. Just to deepen up that color a little bit. And when you're doing a dry brush technique, you just want to make really light, feathery strokes. There we go. Kind of like how that's turning out. Okay, sorry, I had to check on something real quick. Alright. Just going to use the bottom of that to wipe this off. Uh-oh. Okay, what I like to do at this part is just tuck the bottom in there. And I'm going to hold on to this while I put glue all the way around the edge on the inside, and then I'm going to press it in. And that's going to ensure that we don't have any glue sticking up around the edges. I'm loving how this one is turning out. Now we're just going to give it a good press. There we go. And that has our actual pincushion part tucked right inside there. And that's not going anywhere. That's glued in nicely, and you can just leave all the rest stuck up in there. If you want to cut that off before you put it in, by all means cut it off, but you don't have to. Nobody's going to see it anyway, so why bother? So then the next thing we're going to do is attach this to the brim of our hat. And I'm thinking that might be a little too small. That's the back. This is the front. What do you think? Is that too small? I think so. Maybe we can extend it to extend it with some lace. Let me pull out a bag of lace over here. Put that right there. Let's see what else I have in here so that we can sort of extend the brim because I cut that too short. What do you think about that one? I'm going to attach it first and then see how wide a lace we need to go on there. So to attach the hat, just running a bead of hot glue right across the bottom. Like so. And then I'm just going to eyeball it to center it. Sorry if my head is getting in the way anywhere. And then just give that a good press. Yeah, see, that brim is not quite big enough. So I was thinking if we came in with a trim like this. Actually, I think a gathered lace is going to be better on this. Let's see what else I have in all my stuff over here. Sorry guys, I should have been a little more prepared. I have so much stuff piled up next to my desk that it's hard to get to my drawer that my lace is in. I've never thought about it that way. Mistakes can be fun sometimes too. Because if I hadn't made it too small, then I'd have never thought to put some lace on it. This is actually a double-sided that I'm just going to snip apart. And this should curl nicely right. Oh, I like it. It's cute. Okay, so I'm just going to start gluing that right on the back. If I'd have realized I was going to be doing this, that I had my flat iron ready. I learned instead, I don't have one of the tiny irons, so I learned to keep my flat iron, my hair flat iron, close to my desk and heat it up when I'm doing something like this. So if I decide to use ribbon or lace and it's wrinkled, just run that puppy right through your flat iron and you're good to go. See, I have the opposite problem. My daughter has her own flat iron, but she takes mine and uses it and never brings it back. Ever. There we go. I can always hit it with the flat iron later. But that's what we've got so far. And you can even shape it a bit. Dip the front. Sort of pull the sides up so that you have that classic sort of hat shape. Okay, and now for some embellishments. Get my scissors out of the way. I have feathers, I have leaves, I have flowers, I have cameos, I have pearls, and all kinds of good stuff. This is how I store my trims and things, my pearls and things like that. This is a spaghetti sauce jar. And I just paint the lids and stuff it in there. I've got some silver, I have black, I do have some white. Oh honey, I have all sizes. And my largest one, I actually have my buttons in. And this is just some of my buttons. This is a 32-ounce jar in comparison to this one. No, it's actually a spaghetti sauce jar. This one was this one was pizza sauce, and then I have some that are even smaller that I got that my pesto sauces come in because I love pestos. Okay. So let's see how this is going to look. What do you think about that? Just right under the edge. So I've got that one. I also have, and this was bought for me by a girlfriend of mine. I've never used it. Look how gorgeous this trim is. It's got pearls in it. No, I don't like that as much. I think we'll go with the pearls. What do you guys think? Something like this? Or this one? The flatback pearl. So we're going with the flatback pearl, so I'll start here on the back. Start laying those in. And I like to put my glue on my pearls. And then press them into place. Whole or dismembered. hadn't thought of using Barbies for dress forms. I spent hours hand carving a dress form out of packaging foam. Kamika can tell you about that one. I had little bits and pieces of packaging foam everywhere. So I'll have to check my thrift store and see if I can find some Barbies. Okay, so that's got the pearls around the top, and I like how that's looking. That's better. It sort of covers that little bit of a gap up. So now we're going to pull out some flowers and stuff. And I think this is way too aqua for this. I could color it, but that's alright. I pulled out some stick pins as well. Got some satin flowers. We've got charms. I have applique leaves. Satin leaves. The applique leaves in 2 different kinds. We've got cameos. All kinds of jewels and things. So I think I'm going to go with the white flowers for this one. And maybe a couple of the tiny... Those are green. Those are not blue. Yeah, those are green. Pulled out the wrong ones. So now I'm going to take this and my handy dandy chopstick here. And give it a little twirl. I'm thinking maybe some seam binding somewhere. I don't know where. And also, if I can dig them out of the bottom. Go with some pearl trim here on the top. Oh yeah, I like that. See if I can pick off some of this glue that's stuck on there. There we go. Some little pearls at the top to cover up the edge there. On the side. I only recently started playing with polymer clay and find that I really like it. It seems to be sort of relaxing to me. I don't know. those back in there. I made a pendant, if I can find it. This one here. And then just use some Tim Holtz chain on it. I saw someone do a video of some pendants sort of like that. And I sort of scrap lifted, I guess you could call it. Okay. Let's see what to put on here. Maybe one of these. I think these cameos would fit perfectly. The color matches really nicely. Yeah. I've got some buttons. That looks nice too. Go with some of those. You know, this flower isn't white enough for me, so I'm going to spray it with some water and dip it in some white embossing powder and see what we come up with. Just grab my embossing powder. And find my spray bottle. See, I'm such a messy crafter. I've lost it already. Oh, there it is. Set that out of the way for a sec. Just give that a good spray. I probably sprayed it a little too much, but that'll be okay. And I have a spoon here somewhere. Or I thought I did. I'm just going to kind of roll it around in there and then shake off the excess. I've never actually done this before. I've seen other people do it, but I haven't tried it myself. So we'll just have to see how it turns out. Yeah, I found those at a thrift store. I got so lucky with those. I have a couple of appliques too that I picked up. Oh, wow, that's rather interesting. Ow. And hot. I'm going to take this while it's still hot and dip it back into the embossing powder. Oh, holy cow, that's cute. I'm actually gonna start. I'm thinking of selling them. Um, I'm actually at the moment trying to raise money to go to the Scrapbook Expo in Orlando, and I'm gonna be setting up at my local flea market and selling some of these. I don't know if you can see. The focus on my camera is not very good. I'm using a regular webcam, so yeah, I kind of like the way that turned out. I'm also considering selling some of the things that I make on my blog. But at the moment, my blog is a hot mess. It's not really set up for much of anything. Really? Okay. Yep, it's at the Gaylord. We're actually trying to get another person. We had 3, and then one of our ladies had car trouble, and she's not going to be able to come. So at the moment, it's just me and my best friend. And so we're looking for a couple more people to go with us to sort of split the cost of the hotel room and sort of lower some of the expenses. Alright, and what I usually do, I don't put everything on there to see where it's going to go beforehand. I just start popping it on. Well, I managed to find, we can get a room at the Hojo for like $47 a night, which isn't bad at all. I'm certainly not staying at the Gaylord because I do not see spending more than $200 on a hotel room. It's absolutely ridiculous. I will not do it. Exactly. Exactly. Definitely not worth it because we're going to be there most of the time. We want to do the crop on Thursday, um, and go for all 3 days and pretty much be there all day. I'd like to take a class, but unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to budget for it. Let me grab a feather. I definitely need a feather for this one. I'll just sort of put that leaf right there on the front of the feather so it sticks up from behind it. Just tuck that right behind the flower there. So I'm going to add the cameo. I think I'm going to center it right there on the front, just like so. I think I need some lace or something around the edge of the cameo, though, to make it stand out more. What do you think? Yeah, it blends pretty well. I think maybe you're right. I'll leave it like it is. I'd like to get some of the metal frames that I can use for my... Oh, you know what? I'm not sure where they are, though. I have some of the large cameos that were sent to me. Just, you know, the dollar ones that people get all the time that are on necklaces or whatever. And I'm not sure where it is. I do have one of the earrings, though, and it's in blue. I think maybe that one might work. We'll see. It's kind of little. Let me grab my... How about that one instead? I think so too. I think we'll go with that one. It's a bit smaller, but I like it. I really like the frame around it. I think it's just the touch that it needed. And I think I'm also going to add I don't like that gold. Just set that aside for a second. I'm going to drop everything in my lap. I'm going to tuck one of these little white satin roses on the other side of that cameo. Actually, I think I'll use two of them, one on each side. There we go. And I think that's it, ladies. What do you think? Good stopping point? And then our stick pin right in the top. So I think that's it for this time. I will definitely have it posted to my YouTube, and when that gets done, I will share it with Messy Desk. I don't know when I'm going to do another. I do have some ideas, so I will let you guys know beforehand so that you have, plenty of notice. I don't like that USTREAM, when it sends out a notice, like when it's happening. So I like to let people know ahead of time. So that is our finished project, and I'll see you ladies next time. I'm Lady Anominate on YouTube, and I'll actually type that in chat for you so that you can find me. I'm also Lady Anominate on Twitter. Actually, you know what? Well, they won't let me link. I pretty much use the same screen name for everything. So, there we go. And I'll see you ladies next time. Have a great night. Bye-bye.